Welcome to another episode of Before You Kill Yourself with your host, Leo Flowers. Today's episode is brought to us by BetterHelp, Help. Just like if you were stranded on an island, you would write, help. Is there something interfering with your happiness or is preventing you from achieving your goals? For me, it was comparing myself to others, not feeling like I'm enough, and being afraid to express my needs. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. BetterHelp is also committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if needed anytime. The service is available for clients worldwide, and you can start communicating in just under 48 hours. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It is professional counseling done securely online. BetterHelp is not the right solution for you if you have thoughts of hurting yourself or others. There are other numbers that I list in the show notes that you can go to for those services. With BetterHelp, you can log into your account anytime and send a message to your counselor. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions so you won't ever have to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room as with traditional therapy. It's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available. Visit their website and read their testimonials that are posted daily. Quote, after counseling with Jennifer Dressler for 3 weeks on issues concerning depression, stress, anxiety, and trauma, I really appreciate Jennifer's empathy and kindness. I feel heard and supported, and she has offered some really helpful practices. End quote. Another BetterHelp user, quote, after counseling with Michelle Solo for 2 weeks on issues concerning depression, stress, anxiety, addictions, and self-esteem, Michelle and I have just begun communicating, and already I have boundless hope for my future. She's very tool-oriented and doesn't just listen. I've never before had a therapist who is so actively involved in taking steps to help you get better. I would highly recommend her, especially for those who have lost faith in therapy. I did. She's going to surprise you. So please visit betterhelp.com/Leo. That's BetterHelp, and join the over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. I have a special offer for my Before You Kill Yourself listeners. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/Leo. I'm excited about today's episode with Taylor Chandler, who is with, she's a CEO and founder of Thresh Coach. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist and personal trainer and nutritional specialist. That's the trifecta. That's the holy trinity right there to address your mental, physical, nutritional, and relational needs. We definitely talk about all those things today. We even start off talking about when somebody comes to her and they say they want to end their life, like how do we address that? And so we get right into it right off the bat. We're not messing around. We get into it. We also talk about how to make someone feel safe, and not just safe like locking the doors and security, but emotionally safe to share how they feel, how to feel seen, how to speak and listen. So many people are in relationships, and a lot of the conflict is rooted not necessarily in the problem, but just in the ability to speak and listen to one another. We're also going to talk about the power of saying that sucks. That sucks. The power. Those are probably the two most powerful words that people don't have no idea about. And we're going to get into why you want to know. I love this part. We talk about, are you a thermostat or a thermometer? What? Are you? Do you know? It's not a BuzzFeed question. We get into the realm of it. And then she also shares her journey. Halfway through, she shares her journey with depression and anxiety and how she navigated those torrential waters. And we talk about the power of when you see something, say something. How if you see something, say something could actually save your relationship. And then we get into conflict resolution. Everybody's talking about, we like to act like everything's great and happy and good, but when things hit the fan, how do we resolve conflict, right? How do we bring things down? And then we get into towards the end, we talk about why women go to therapy. Specifically, we get into Black women because she's in Atlanta, and why do married women go to therapy? And then we talk about the power of making things stick, the emotional part of change, why we need our emotions to spur change. This is a great episode. You're going to love this from beginning to end, and we're going to bring her back for a part 2. We're going to Malcolm X this thing. And if you haven't already, go to thrivewithleo.com for one-on-one coaching with yours truly. And let's get to tomorrow together. Taylor Chandler.
Hi.
How are you? We're just doing audio, but I see you got all dolled up. So if you want to keep the video, go right ahead.
I'll do it.
I love it. Yeah, you got the hair pulled up in a ponytail. You ready to go to work?
Oh, absolutely. Every day.
I was just watching your Instagram story. You had me all fired up. I mean, you were talking about bullies and how I was like, oh yeah, I ain't even had no bullies. I wanted a bully just so I could do what you was talking about. I was like, yeah.
Just so you could tell them that.
Yeah. I was like, I want a bully. Wait, now you in ATL, right?
I am.
That's why my family on my dad's side lives in Atlanta, Atlanta, Georgia. So next time I come out there, we're gonna have to do a face-to-face because I'm already vibing your energy.
Absolutely. I'm ready.
All right, now I gotta ask. The listeners can't see this, but I see like a million books behind. Have you read all those books? Or you just like
all of them, every single one? Not every single one in its entirety, though. Okay. So you got some Stephen Hawking up there, which is it's like kind of hard to get through like that. It's a really diverse range of books. When I look at them, I'm like, I got a Leonardo da Vinci biography up there. You've got a lot of therapy stuff, a lot of fitness stuff, but then you've got James Baldwin. You've got Windows to the World, A Guide to Wine. You've got a lot of different stuff.
All right, and then what's that book that's open behind you? Is that the Bible? Is that like Proverbs 3:13? What is that?
This is called The Soul of Psychosynthesis. This is a guy named Kenneth Sorensen who basically took this other guy's book, which is Psychosynthesis by Roberto Asciagioli, and he made it more digestible. It's really interesting. I know it's not. It's super
all right,
interesting.
Give me a takeaway. Give me one of those aha insights or whatever from the book so far. Where he was like, "Damn," you know what I mean? Give me one of those.
Yeah. So one of the huge things is about the act of the will and how your will directs everything that you do and how you have control over all of that. And so basically, just like directing your energy into exactly what you want.
Is that kind of like law of attraction, or is that like is he talking about something a little different?
He's talking about something a bit different. So the law of attraction is more about, I would even say like an arbitrary desire and how to make that manifest. And this is about taking all aspects of your personality, your physical, your mental, your emotional, and synthesizing it in a way to create what you want, and then directing your will towards that thing, but by using all the things you already have.
It's like being how to be resourceful, basically, like how to utilize what's already around you versus trying to find things to add to it. And that's what you're doing as a coach. You're a personal trainer. You're a nutrition specialist. You're a certified and licensed marriage and family therapist. I mean, that's mind, body. And then you got like the Stephen Hawking. So you trying to pull the stars into it? You trying to grab the moon and all that?
Just all of it. And so that's why when I came across psychosynthesis, and the guy that wrote the very first book, it was like 1864. I mean, it was a while ago. So then you see how these ideas have just been around for, I mean, it's been around way before the 1800s, but how these ideas have been around for so long. And now we're just kind of using them in a more innovative way. But yeah, when I came across psychosynthesis, I was like, this is literally what I've been doing. And this guy was talking about it 150 years ago.
All right. Okay. So somebody comes to you and says they want to end their life. How do you use psychosynthesis to guide them from there?
So when we're talking about suicide or suicidal ideation, I mean, that comes from, it's so layered, right? Like there are so many experiences that have happened to a person before they get to that point. I mean, when someone is serious about that statement, there have been, I mean, you could say countless, right? Countless things that have come to manifest in a way that where someone wants to end their life. And so we don't start from the top. Like psychosynthesis is when you think about like Abraham Maslow's self-actualization, right? Like where I'm just going to be the best person that I can be. That's not what we're doing with someone who is suicidal, where I think like sometimes someone thinks a go-to is, well, what about all the amazing things that you have going on in your life? But if someone is in a place where they want to end their life, they're not really thinking about all the amazing reasons to live, right? Like if someone comes to me and says something like that, my go-to is not, well, let's just make you the best that you can be, right? That's starting from the top. So we're going to the bottom. We're talking about like basic needs, basic human needs, basic feelings of safety that we can incorporate in someone's life. Not how can you be the absolute best in your career, but how can we just make you feel safe? So it's less about synthesizing all of your best attributes, but like, can we just get to the basic needs that you need to feel safe right in this moment?
You know what? I love that response because the idea of feeling safe is also layered, right? I was thinking about, I had a show last night. It was my first show after about 3 months of not doing stand-up. And
I saw that.
I realized I didn't feel safe enough to talk about the things I really wanted to go into. You know, I was like, I don't know if I could bounce back from that. I don't know if the club will have me back. If, you know, sometimes you want to dig into some deep territory at what a point, what a purpose. But you're like, man, I ain't been on stage in 3 months. I don't know if my skills are still sharp enough. And so when we talk about safety, I think a lot of people think guns, security, lock your doors, maybe even wash your hands. But there is an emotional layer of safety that in terms of, do you feel safe enough to share your emotions? Do you feel safe enough to say that what you said hurt me? Or do you feel like you might lose that person because that you're showing up with all of you, right? And I can see in your face that you savoring all of this. What do you talk to me, Taylor? What's going on?
Yeah, so I mean, that is so real. Like, you know, when someone comes to you that is in such a, let's just say, low place, right? Just to make it short, just in a really low place, really low feeling, a really, you know, my new age people like want to call it we want to call it a low vibration. And in that way, and someone's coming to you in that way, the goal is to have them feel seen right as they are, and not to try to pressure them, force them, inject them with some kind of enthusiasm. Where no, if someone is feeling really low, really sad, really depressed, that's where they are right then. And so we've got to go to that moment right then and not try to rush the process. Like you were talking about being on stage last night and feeling safe after not having shows for quite some time due to the current circumstances, right? And that's where you were right at that time. So we've got to meet you right there and not try to pretend like the last 3 months have been any semblance of normalcy, because it hasn't. Just like when someone comes in that really low depressed state, we can't pretend like we can just pop you back into normalcy, because that's just not how it works. There's a process you have to go through.
I love that. Oh, you just gave me the courage to hit the stage tonight. I'm like, that's right. It's been 3 months. That's right. Validate. You know, I'm a little rusty, so I'm gonna try some things out. Hell, I'm ready. I'm ready to take off the seatbelt and no helmet. Let's do this.
Whoa.
2,000 miles an hour. Let's go. So what, in terms of I love what you're talking about, how to make a person feel safe, how to make a person feel seen. What does that sound like? What are you saying? What do we say to each other so that we feel seen, so that we feel safe?
So what you can start with, because not everyone's like a therapist or a coach, right? Like, or has gone through some sort of formal training in listening. And so it's really getting back to really basic listening. And so many people just aren't great listeners. And it's understandable, because we're in a time where everyone is encouraged to just voice, but not really. So we've kind of come to a point where we're a little unbalanced, where we all want to speak, but not everyone wants to listen. And so what you can do if you are trying to allow someone to feel heard is by just repeating back to them what you just heard. That does so much. It does so much. And especially someone that has if we go back to like suicidal ideation or intent, if someone is coming to you in that place and they've been in that place many times before, which is often the case, right? It's for a lot of people. It's been a long time, a long running thing where it's a periodic thing that comes up. I mean, that's plenty of people, right? So they have heard over and over and over again, just get outside, exercise. Just turn on your favorite show. Go get your nails done, right? They've heard all of these things that's just like these sort of Band-Aids, instead of someone just saying, wow, that really must suck. Like, that must be really painful to go through that. That must really hurt. Can you tell me more about that? I want to know what that feels like. If you haven't been in that place yourself, ask someone, what does it feel like to not want to get out of bed in the morning? What does it feel like when you're outside and it all looks gray? It's a sunny day. It's 93 degrees, but it just feels like a rainy, cold day. I want to understand a little bit better. And I know that there are a lot of people who feel like, well, if I talk about suicide, it's going to make someone want to do it. And that is it's a huge fallacy. And we have to be okay with talking about it and touching on it and asking someone about it. What is their experience with it? What does that feel like for you? Because it's a really, suicide is a general thing, but it's a personal experience. I want to know what it feels like for you. And just to give someone the space to talk about how much it sucks, how sad it really could be, does so much for somebody just to feel heard and seen and not rushed through the process.
Wow, I love that, Taylor. So powerful to say, and here's why. Because a lot of times I'll say that's powerful, and people will be like, "Is he just pandering?" No, I just learned. I have a friend of mine who responds with sometimes with "that sucks," and it's so remarkable how that phrase does make you feel seen, safe, and heard. And I've used it. I don't want to say use it. I don't know if that's the right word. I've incorporated, synthesized it into my my own way of responding to people. And people will send me these long emails or text messages venting their feelings, and I respond with "that sucks." And immediately they're like, "Yeah, it does. Wow, that's all I needed." And it's like, boom, 2 words. That sucks.
Yeah.
So powerful. And we're done. And then we're right back to, shooting hoops or playing Monopoly or whatever we were doing before.
Right.
So it's those 2 words are so powerful. I just want to validate that, double down on that, and say that not only are you using it, but I use it, and I've seen the and to say to ourselves sometimes, to be like, hold on, Leo, what you just been through, that sucked. So that's something that we could even say to ourselves. I want to ask you a question about and this is for my own selfish reasons. Last night after my show, because I didn't express myself the way I wanted to, I realized I over identify too much with being a comedian and my performance as a comedian. Because I came home, I felt bad, and I was eating ice cream. And I realized a lot of people, especially during this time, are losing their jobs. And when we talk about ending life, people will end their life over losing a job, losing a spouse. And because we identify as a father, we identify as a CEO or whatever our position is. How do we separate ourselves mentally from what we do versus who we are? Is that a fair question?
Oh, it's a great question.
Oh, I'm excited.
This is just one of my favorite things.
I love it. Let's do this.
Truly, because this, I think, for me, always goes back to having a spiritual foundation. And that is, gosh, I could say so much about this, right? But what you're talking about, identification, immediately we can go ahead and talk about the ego, right? Because if my ego is tied up in my identity, then it matters to me if you applaud when I get on the stage. It matters to me if when I post a video, if you go and like it. Because if I identify as that, if my ego is tied up in that, then it really matters if you can accept me as that identity that I'm projecting out into the world. But if I can come to a place where I've separated, the question that you're asking, how to separate from that identity, is to be able to get an identity that never changes, that no matter what happens, no matter what the temperature is outside, no matter what somebody says to you, no matter if you're booed off stage, no matter if somebody blocks you, they didn't like what you said online, right? Like, no matter what, this is an identity that never, ever changes, that never, ever falters. And however you identify spiritually, and some people loop religion in with that, it's a whole different question. But if you can find a spiritual grounding, then it just, in short, doesn't matter what you think of the identity that I'm projecting to you in this moment, because regardless of how you respond to me, there is a bigger, better, stronger, more powerful, never changing identity that I always fall back on. And that is a spiritual foundation.
I love that. You know, I was listening to brother Dr. Cornel West, and he said, "Are you a thermometer or are you a thermostat? You know, are you checking to see what everybody else wants first before you present, or are you determining what is going to be and then seeing how the world revolves around that?" And I realized last night I was a thermometer and not a thermostat. So when we
that's a great way to put it.
And so when we talk about, you talked about spiritually and figuring out who you are at all times, how do you help people uncover that or discover that?
So I think meditation is the most powerful thing that you can do on your own, right? Like, there are so many different ways that you can tap into people who deliver spiritual or religious messages and all these things. But meditation is something that you can do on your own whenever you want for free. I mean, it's free. And you tap into this super consciousness, which if you look at a psychosynthesis, it actually really outlines that really, really well. A super consciousness, which is above ego, above the things that we experience in this realm, but this kind of like super truth. So what I always encourage people to try meditation out. Some people have had some poor experiences with it. I think that there's a lot of expectations that come with meditation, right? Like, even as I'm saying this, thinking about how someone might receive that, like, oh my gosh, if I just meditate, then I'll tap into the super consciousness and I'll never identify with my ego again. And that's a huge expectation. Okay. That's a lot to put on meditation. Even though it can give you that, you don't necessarily have to expect that going into it. It can start really just as like a 5-minute quiet time. If you just kind of tune it back down, get rid of the super consciousness and disidentification of ego and all that stuff. Because it really, when it comes down to it, meditation is about stillness and quietness without all of the expectations. I truly believe that if you practice meditation often, you will come to those truths. But if you're just starting out, the goal is just to be quiet and just to be still. And in those cases, if we can kind of dial back those expectations, people normally find that the experience really isn't so bad and that it's actually quite nice.
Well, we've been conditioned from a kid that to hate quiet time. I hated that in school. All right, now it's quiet time. He was like, "What? I want to play. I want to do things." Or sitting quietly meant you were being punished for something. So I think on a subconscious level, we had this visceral negative association with sitting quietly, right? With doing nothing.
Yes.
But now it's a way of transformation and reflection and connection.
I think that that's a really, really good point. I mean, you think about like I think about when I was in school and it would like in elementary school and it would be like, okay, if this table's being too loud now, you have to be quiet or like you have to go sit at this table all by yourself, right? And like, so there is a negative connotation that is seated in you when you're really young. And we could say a lot about that, about this fear of what happens if you do speak your mind, or what happens when your pure thoughts really do come out. Oh gosh, Leo, you're going to get me started on this one. But
get started, girl. Let's go.
I think that there is this fear of, oh my gosh, what are my pure thoughts? What do I really want? If I really express myself fully, what would come out? And so we kind of we revert. I'll say we revert to just being quiet instead. And when it comes to adults telling children, just be quiet or just don't talk back and all of that. Now, there's disciplinary reasons that we could get into. We won't about those kinds of things. But it does kind of, I think you used a really good word, condition you to say, well, what if my voice really doesn't matter? And that's something that we have to unlearn, that inner voice that you have, especially as you've grown into whoever adult that you are, it does matter. And that's really the only truth is what do you believe? What do you think? How do you want to express yourself? But I think that actually that unlearning is an amazing part of the human journey and process. So I really wouldn't change it. I think that's just part of the journey that we're on.
I'm all about the journey. I actually, to the point where I love flying to a place. I don't really need to go there. I like packing my bags, getting on the plane. And then like once we land there, and I stretch out a little bit, I could easily get right back on a plane and come back.
It's the anticipation.
It's the anticipation. Yeah. It's never as great as, Thailand ain't as great as the videos. Is that 4K drone shot? It's not. I mean, it's nice, but that 4K drone shot is the best. How old are you, Taylor?
I'm 26.
26. All right, so I gotta peel back the layers on Taylor for a second. We peel back the layers on so many other things. You're born and raised in Atlanta,
Virginia Beach,
and so tell me about what started you on this journey. I assume that most people who get into the wellness field have struggled on some level with wellness or mental health. What was your journey?
So I always played sports. I started playing sports when I was 4. Soccer was my first one, and I played that for years. I added field hockey. No, I added basketball after that, and then field hockey came after that. People in the South never know what field hockey is, but I mean, just look at it. It's kind of like lacrosse, but it's not. And after I left Virginia Beach, I went to Virginia Tech. That was actually, I went to a therapist when I was the first time I went to a therapist. I was probably like 12 years old. The second therapist that I saw, I was at Virginia Tech after a very bad breakup. And I was with her for a little bit. That was also the first time it was actually the only time that I'd been prescribed. It was probably an antidepressant. which was really used more for my anxiety at the time. After that, I came to Atlanta the summer after I graduated from Virginia Tech, which was in 2015. And I saw one therapist when I was in grad school. And then one of my professors, she introduced me to my therapist now, who I would never let go, like, for anything in the world. I think she's amazing, and she'll just be my therapist for life, whether she knows it or not. So yeah, I've had therapists throughout my life, and I plan to have a therapist on call, like, for the rest of my life. I love therapy. But for me, my struggles initially were, it's like when I was at Virginia Tech, that was the first time I really experienced depression and really understood what it felt like to just not want to get up and to, like, randomly cry and just feel like there is nothing that's going to fix this. I'm going to feel this way forever. And when I was in my senior year at Tech, I did an internship at Virginia Tech's Marriage and Family Therapy Center, where their PhD marriage and family therapists do their work. And I got an internship there. I decided to apply to grad school and came to Atlanta.
Okay. All right. So we got a lot to play with here.
Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot in there.
Lot to play with. First of all, huge. I went to Ball State University, and field hockey was a huge sport at Ball State. So I
from the north,
right? So a lot of people, you're right. A lot of people don't know about field hockey, but I think it's going to take over because a girls' field hockey game is looks just as competitive as men's field hockey. You know,
it's crazy.
So it's going to grow. That and lacrosse, I think, is also growing right now. So look that up. Look at it. Check out a field hockey game, ladies and gentlemen. While you're waiting on football and basketball and all these other sports. So watch some old, like who's is there a famous field hockey player?
Not that I know of.
Nobody with a Nike endorsement or not?
No, nobody. Nike hasn't caught on to it yet, but there might be somebody coming up.
Now, when you said the depression really hit you at Virginia Tech,
yeah,
was that
freshman year?
Was that due to the transition from home to college? Was that due to something that happened at college, a breakup?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was the combination of a couple of things. So I think a lot of times when you look at when someone finally comes in and says, "I'm depressed," or they get to a point where they're diagnosed with that, whether they had an idea that they were diagnosable or not. There's what I would call there's usually a perfect storm of events. So for me, it was the transition, which I didn't think I didn't think that it had as much of an effect as it probably did. I mean, it's huge. Like that's a huge shift. So the transition, and then this breakup that happens right before coming into college. And so, like, not having the same support system that I could normally rely on, and then getting used to these schedule shifts, all these different responsibilities. And then, I was seeing all these people. Virginia Tech does an amazing job with their freshman students. Eventually, I was an orientation leader and got to lead the freshmen. And it was just so funny because I was leading them in. And I was like, well, at this time, I didn't tell them this. But at that time, I was just so depressed. And so it's funny how it ended up where I was like I became like Miss Virginia Tech, like just loved it so much. But at the beginning, it wasn't like that at all. So I was seeing all these people have so much fun and getting to know all these people and just loving their life. And at least it seemed that way. And that's another really important thing to note, that when you are feeling that depressed, it looks like everybody is living their best life every single day. And you just can't figure out why you can't get there. And so I had this like perfect storm of events that were happening. And so it just really exasperated the issue. So I would say it wasn't just the breakup, but the breakup was the catalyst that really like lit everything on fire.
It's so hard to deal with a breakup. I mean, when we're young, everybody's telling you just get over it. You're young. We miss one bus, another bus will come. And like you said, it's not meeting us where we're at, you know, whether it's a breakup or job loss or any type of transition. It's like, yeah, but right now though, it hurts, you know,
Right.
right now it's painful. I wasn't equipped with this. And we do live in such a feel good society. And I say society because, you know, I don't know if you ever watched a European movie, but those European movies, they delve deeply into the darkness. They don't have happy endings.
Yes.
You don't know if the good people are going to get away or not. Like, you don't know if they're going to end up together.
Somber.
It's very somber, very melancholy. Yeah. You don't know what's going to happen. You watch an American movie, you're like, all right, they fight now, but of course it's going to work out and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, we overhype happiness and joy, and, excitement, and it's like, damn, I can't be sad for. Can I just be? He just passed away. Can I take a second?
Right.
And you're right. It's like your friends, they don't know how to comfort you because they want you to either go party or let's go drinking or something maladaptive for the most part, or you know. And so we haven't been well versed in melancholy. You know, we don't read the Tolstoys and the Nabokovs, you know, that get into all the feelings that we need to feel. So when you how did you get through that? Like what were the steps that you took to navigate through those emotions?
I if I remember correctly, I think therapy was first, and then it kind of like ran into me getting involved with a Bible study that was around campus, but they had a Bible study in every dorm. And I got with those ladies, and that really helped. So that, you know, I was lacking a support system. And so that really gave me a support system. It gave me that spiritual foundation that, I mean, I always grew up. I identified as Christian for my whole life, but it wasn't always it wasn't like a super active thing. It was just something like, oh, if someone asked me like, oh, like, what's your religion? I would say I'm a Christian. You know, it was just like I would say it was a passive thing. I didn't have a spiritual foundation. I had a religious identification. And so getting in touch with that spiritual foundation, those two things really, really helped. And I started to channel my energy into productivity, which isn't all, I mean, there's definitely, that can get maladaptive, like that perfectionism, like I just have to produce, and that'll make me feel better. Which that definitely happened too. So I kind of swung from like one extreme to the other, which is normal for a lot of people. So it's like therapy, that support system, and then getting really involved. Virginia Tech has so many like things that people get involved in. It's like a super like a rah-rah school, you know? So I got like super involved with a lot of different activities, and that helped. Getting
involved, right? Because it's the opposite of what we want to do when we're hurt, sad.
Exactly.
We want to withdraw. We want to isolate. We want to close down. We don't call our friends back. But that's the time to reach out. That's the time to be seen. That's the time to show up. It's a time to engage.
Absolutely.
And so I was. So can you share with me? I want to go all the way back to the beginning. What you were saying in an Instagram video in terms of people who are dealing with bullies, and what was that message?
So that message is about knowing who you are, because we all know at this point, I mean, everybody's got an opinion. And especially when you're starting to move forward. So when you step forward, there are so many people that you'll see pop up to try to step in. And they step in with an opinion, but it's not the truth of who you are. And when you can identify the truth of who you are, and that's like you're the only one that can define that. People can give you ideas. People can point you in the right direction, give you the right book, send you the right link. But if you don't identify with that truth, especially if you're in a depressed state, it just doesn't matter. But when you can step into that identification of who you are and be confident in that, then nothing that these bullies or the haters or people who who speak abusively to you or who behave abusively to you, we reject it. we don't even entertain it because I have a foundation of who I am. And so you can't come into my life and tell me, I say, this is your mind is your house. So you think about like if someone comes and knocks on your door and you open the door and you say, hi, why are you here? And they say, I came here to paint all the walls green. You would say, no, this isn't your house. You can't do that. And you have to treat your mental space that same way. So my mind is my house. And you can't come into my house and tell me how to think or how to be or who I am. I define what happens in my house. That's your domain.
Perfect example. I used to substitute teach. And it was at a Jewish school, actually. It was a elementary school. I think there were 8th graders or maybe even middle school. And I gave the kids their math assignment because I suck at math. I was like, here's your assignment. And then I just like pulled up a magazine. It was like, you're on your own. And so this one girl asked another girl for help. I was like, help each other out. And the other girl responded, you're so dumb. Like, how could you not know how to do this? And, of course, I'm about to jump in and, there's no how you talk. But immediately the other girl responded with, yeah, but how do you do number 4? And the other girl was like, yes. Oh my God, you're so this is just, it's so easy. And still unflinchingly, stoically, the girl looked right back at her and was like, yeah, but how do you do number 4? And finally, the other girl was like, okay, so first you have to carry this and then move that. And then you have to blah, blah, blah. And the girl went right back to work. Like in her head, she was like, yeah, maybe I'm dumb now. Maybe I don't know. But once you show me how to do it, that will no longer be true. In less than a minute, I'll be as smart as you. Once you show me what you know, then we on the same page. I'm
Absolutely.
Just right. And I was like, wow. I never forgot that.
That's huge. That's huge, right? Like, and I love that. I mean, never, I think you should never be embarrassed by what you lack. In that story you just told, this person, this child lacked the knowledge of how to get, or the how to get to the answer. And she wasn't embarrassed by it. She owned it. Yeah, I just don't know how to do number 4. And that's it. I don't have to be embarrassed by that. If anything, I mean, the people that can acknowledge their gaps, they should be praised. These are the models that we should be looking after, right? Because they're willing to say, I don't have this. I might have a lot of other things together, but I want to talk about what I don't have. And I actually want to align with the people that might have some information for me, because if you know so much, maybe you could overflow it into me. I think that's amazing.
It was so amazing. And I never said to that girl how powerful that moment was. And I look back and now I regret that because, sometimes we don't realize the impact that we have on the people around us because the people around us aren't giving us the feedback on our impact, right? Like in my head, like she knew all the things, like she was the guru. I would have went to her for all the things, and but maybe in her head that was the one part that she knew, and that was the one moment of her strength. But there are other areas that she struggled with, and me saying something to her about how powerful that moment was, because maybe she didn't even realize it. For whatever. Sometimes we don't realize our power and our strength and how great we are.
Yeah, that's so real. I mean, I think that when you see something amazing and beautiful or something that you admire, absolutely, we should speak on these things. And, we think that the people who like in that moment, that's something that you're like, oh my gosh, that's such a standout moment. And we think that we generalize that to all areas of that person's life, right? That snapshot. Oh, they must just be confident all the time. And maybe that's not the case, right? So I think you're exactly right. Pointing those things out to people, it just reinforces it. And goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning. I feel seen. You see my strength and my power. And now I just feel even better about doing that all the time.
And I love that you talked about see something, say something, because unfortunately that's gotten wrapped up in something negative. You see a bomb, you see something threatening or scary or something out of place, or a person with a hoodie on, then call somebody, say something. But also when you see greatness, when you see kindness, when you see compassion, when you see integrity and honesty and love and sharing, say something. Be like, wow, that was really thoughtful of you to give up your seat for that person. That was really beautiful of you for you to walk into the street because you weren't wearing a mask on, and you saw that a family had a mask on. Like when you see something, say something. When you see your spouse do something around the house, when they clean up, say something. You know, when they make your breakfast, say something. When you see something, don't make me get all. Don't say something. Don't make me do it now. Don't make me get up out the chair. It's a Friday.
Preach it now. Preach it. No, I love that. It's so real. And oh my gosh. There's two huge things. And what I heard you say, one is like where we are all so childlike in the way that we're reinforced. Every person responds to reward. And it doesn't mean giving somebody a literal token, but like just that pat on the back, that acknowledgement is a reward. And the more that you reward, the more that you reinforce, the more you get what you want, the more you get great behavior, the more you get people wanting to give to you. If you say, oh my gosh, I loved when you helped me when you came out and helped me bring the bags in, the more that person's going to want to do it. So it's a win-win. But the second thing that really sticks out to me, especially in this time that we're in, sometimes it can almost feel, I think for some people, it feels almost strange to focus on the positive because there's so much negativity that's being poured out. And it's real and it's valid and it's important that we talk about all of those things, right? So, all of that. So it can feel almost like strange or you're out of place when you want to highlight something really positive. It can feel like you're detracting, but I really, really believe that we need both. I think we need people that are headstrong. You're going to be in the issues. You are almost like they're antagonistic. You need antagonizers in cases, but we can balance that too by having people who are willing to share the people that are doing positive things, who are willing to speak on all of the good things in the world. It doesn't detract. It actually reinforces our commitment to going to the same goal, which is more peace, more unity, right? We all want that. Right? And both sides work together to get to that goal.
Absolutely. I was just watching the other day. There is, she's either 91 or 94, because I forget how long ago the video was shot, and she's still alive. She is a gymnast. When you see a woman in her 90s, ladies and gentlemen, doing a handstand,
I can't do a handstand.
Doing a plank on bars in her 90s.
That's amazing.
Right. And like you said, is not to distract, is not to detract. It's to recognize we could be both at war and in a place of growth. We could be in a place of construction and destruction, in a place of joy and pain. In a place
duality,
of duality. Come on now, yin yang. You know, I study. I read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. We can be both. I could love you and hate you all at the same time. That might be a personality disorder. But anyway, I could be both. I could be both strong and vulnerable. So so don't be at home. I got my one of my family members called me talking about she thinking about moving to Canada because of all the things she watching in the news. And I was like, yeah, if that's all you're watching on the news, I'd want to move to Canada too. But you got to balance out what you're feeding yourself. You can't just eat all meat. You got to eat your vegetables. You got to eat your fruits. You got to get the fiber. You got to get the carbs. You got to balance out. I'm just keto. All right, see how long you last on that keto diet. You better mix it up. Not very long. I'm gonna tell you that right now, and that's coming from a nutritionist right there. But I want to get into the licensed marriage and family therapist side of Taylor Chandler, okay? Because a lot of people are at home with their loved ones. Probably struggling with love. And because going back to communication and how we talk to ourselves and how we talk to other people, a lot of people, can you talk to me about conflict resolution. Yeah.
Yes.
Right? Because we all know how to exist when things are good and cool. But how do we de-escalate a situation? How do we bring things
Yes.
down?
Great question. So, something that I think is really important. Number one, you can only take responsibility for your part in the conversation, in the conflict. So, my goal in a conflict with a partner is not to try to get you to do something. Even the way that we word things can lead us down like which road we're going to go, right? So like if I say, I need you to understand this. Well, do I need you to understand it, or would it just be really helpful if you understood it? I noticed that even just that little minor change can take down someone's defensiveness. Instead of saying, you have to get this, I would say it would be helpful for me if you could hear this part. So immediately someone's defensiveness goes down because I'm not trying to get you to do something. I'm only speaking for what I need in this conversation right now. So that's huge. Like just understanding what your part is in the conversation and only speaking from you. But when you're in, also, let's just say that everything is easier than it sounds, right? Like, and when we're talking about conflict resolution, there's so many things that people will throw out, and it's like, yeah, that sounds great, but when I'm in the heat of it, what do I do? When I'm already, oh my God, I didn't even realize that I'm in the conflict. I'm already 30 minutes in. Now what do I do? What you can do is not be the one to drown the relationship. Okay. Again, I can only take responsibility for what my role is. And what I'm going to do is try to focus on something positive or something that we can agree on, even if it's just for a moment. Even if it's just for a moment. So when you find yourself going back and forth, when you're already in there, when you're in that kind of conflict where it's I say my side, you say your side, we already know nobody's listening, right? Nobody's really listening to the other person. You're just waiting to react. You're not even responding at that point. So if I can then notice, first thing, I just need to be aware of what's going on. I need to notice that I'm in a conflict. The second thing that I can do is say, okay, if I'm in a conflict, let me do the opposite action. Let me say just one thing that isn't conflicting. What do we agree on? If we're disagreeing about who, let's use like the super cliche example, you were supposed to take out the trash. Well, one thing we can agree on, even if we're going back and forth, is we would like the house to be clean. We would want the house to smell good. Right? Like that's a super basic thing. But if you say that in the middle of an argument, if you can find one thing that you two are agreeing on, because usually you guys are trying to get to the same goal, you're just going about it in two different ways, just say what it is. And it immediately just disrupts the cycle that you're in. And now I've injected something positive into it. Go ahead and take the responsibility to do that. And so when you do that and you break the cycle, I think you'll immediately see that it changes someone's reaction to you. And they'll say, yeah, we do want that. We do both want the house clean. And now, oh my gosh, we're actually now on a totally different track than we were 5 seconds ago, because we've come to common ground. And so that's really, really important. Now, if you're unable to do that in the heat of the argument, I think timeouts are perfectly fine. A lot of therapists would agree that if you really find that you're just going down and down and you're about to drown in the conflict, the relationship's about to drown, we're going underwater, then it might be time to say, like, let's just take 5 minutes, or I'm going to take a 5-minute walk and I just want to come right back. And then now we can just kind of try to start as fresh as possible. And then get back into the conversation. What's typically ineffective is to notice that you're in conflict. So you got through step 1, you're aware that you're in conflict, and you just keep doing the conflict. That's typically not the most helpful thing to do.
Yeah, I love that of what is it that we agree on? What's the common ground here? And thinking about, so what you're basically, there's a book called, I want to say Decision or Decisive or something like that. And he talks about zooming in and zooming out. And, when we go using your example of the trash, right, we're talking about the trash, that we're zooming in on this very specific thing. But when we zoom out as to what's our purpose here? What's the bigger picture? It's like we both want to keep the house clean, and maybe we weren't clear on what that meant. Maybe we weren't clear on what our standards are, and that's okay because we are at all times learning about each other, and also to recognize their seasons. Meaning that when I think about college, I was clean, but during finals week, man, you might find everything everywhere, at all times.
Yes.
And so to say, hey, are you going through something right now that taking out the trash is too much for you? Is there a way that we can work around that for now? Because
that's so important.
I think what happens is that we put these strategies, routines, and I don't know, whatever in place, and then we never come back to say, "Hey, is this still working for both of us, or do we need to change it, or what about this is effective or ineffective?" Right? I like that you said helpful. I'm working on incorporating the word effective versus ineffective. And just like I have a routine, I have a daily routine, and I recognize that my routine is great. However, there are times where I have to break the routine. Sometimes my routine gets in the way of my progress, and I have to break that. And so sometimes taking out the trash can get in the way of some things. So then we figure it out, but we have to be willing to be honest and be present and have those conversations with each other.
For sure, being flexible, allowing the other person to be different than they were, the first day that you met them, right? Allowing for growth in that person, allowing even for regression at times, right? Because to think that all of us are always growing, progressing at every moment, every time, and we never have a moment of regression. We never, ever revert back to an old habit. It's unfair. It's unfair. You have to give someone the opportunity to mess up and also to redeem themselves, right? But like you said, communication is so paramount in that, not just letting things go that do bother you, but then when you do speak up about what bothers you, doing it in a respectful way, but in a way where you also consider the context. We are all in a different challenging time than we were 3 months ago, 4 months ago. And so considering the context is so important. And I'll say with that too, is with context, being okay with saying, you know what? Babe, it's not about the trash. I'm really upset about whatever it is, right? Because especially right now, when you're in these if you have like a live-in partner or a partner that you see very, very often, where you're in these close quarters and maybe for longer periods than normal, you can find that you're arguing about things that you would consider on a normal day to be minute. But is it really about that thing, or is it really something else? Is it really about trust? Is it really, I hate the way you communicate, don't work for me? Is it really about respect? Like, do I feel like when you don't take out the trash, you don't respect me? Well, that's a whole different conversation than about getting into a different routine, right? So identifying what the real problem is and creating a space that's safe enough to allow yourself and the other person to be comfortable enough to be able to state it in, to use your word, an effective way.
I love that idea of like, is it trash really about trash, or is it about how it makes me feel? You feel about me, is it a sign that something's wrong with our relationship? We start to catastrophize and internalize all the things we see around us. And that's what we're really looking for is, we're really saying that it makes me feel a certain way, but we don't lead with our emotions. Right. And even in stand up, I realized after I got off stage, what I was trying to lead with jokes and blah, 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 when really I should have led with the emotion of, I miss you guys. I miss this. I miss being up here. Like that was the predominant emotion. But I was too worried. I went up there like a little thermometer and was like, hey, how are you guys feeling? Instead of just leading with how I felt, which is real courage, right? To say, here's how I feel. Because I've always hated in relationships when somebody, they look at you and they go, hey, so what are you thinking? Because what they're really saying is that this space between us is making me feel a certain way. I'm picking up something. I don't know what it is, and I'm wanting you to identify how I'm feeling versus saying, "Hey, I feel this way right now."
Oh, that's good.
What are you feeling?
That's good, Leo. That's good.
You like that?
I like that.
Take the baton, girl. What you doing?
That is exactly. Oh my gosh, that is so real. And I mean, that what you're talking about too. What comes to my mind is taking responsibility for how you feel in that moment, right? If I feel uncomfortable, I'm feeling insecure, or I'm feeling distant from you. How about I state that? Right? How about I state that and give you that to work with, and let's just get to the core of it, rather than talking about all these like things on the fringes that really don't matter. Do we really care about the trash? Do we really care about the silence, or is it about what the silence means to me? But that comes with building trust. Are you with someone you can trust? Have you been able to have vulnerable conversations? Have you gotten to a place where you can be vulnerable? And oftentimes, I think a lot of people see that work usually happens outside of a relationship. That work that you spend even knowing what is vulnerability, what does that look like? Can I even be vulnerable with myself? Can I see myself? Oh gosh, Leo, we could go on all day about this one. We might have to do a series. On this.
Don't think I won't do it. Don't think we won't bring you back. ATL, come on now. We got time. Everybody home right now. Right. Listen, don't let me call you. You don't pick up the phone. I know where you at. You ain't out in the streets right now. You ain't playing. No. You ain't playing field hockey.
No, I'm home.
Yeah.
We're home.
What you work predominantly with Black women, right?
Yes.
That's your target demo. What are the married Black? Two questions. One, what are Black women typically coming to you with at this time, and what are married Black women coming to you with? Does that question make sense? Or
yeah.
Okay.
So there, I would say one really big thing is wanting to have it all. And I really think you can have it all. I think you could have an amazing relationship, an amazing career, an amazing mental and spiritual and emotional life and physical life. I really, truly believe that. But it's about like the balance of it all, right? We're talking about Atlanta. This is the hub for every Black entrepreneur. You want to be, if you're not in Atlanta, you're thinking about Atlanta. Like you trying to come to Atlanta. This is the place. So this is especially with Black women who lead entrepreneurs in opening businesses and becoming successful entrepreneurs. Black women are leading the pack, and so balancing your career goals, your defining your purpose, going after your purpose, and finding the right counterpart for that. And unfortunately, and I hate the narrative, Leo. I hate the narrative that dating is hard in Atlanta, but that's been internalized by so many people. It's a reality for a lot of people, honestly, that dating is really difficult for Black women. People want to talk about the ratio of women to men all the time. First and foremost, none of those things are helpful to talk about because it's not solutions. It's just another version of whining, but it just has numbers attached to it. It's not helpful. But I get that a lot. A lot of it's really difficult to find the right person who can understand my drive and who can support me in the way that I want to be supported, and also go after my career goals at the same time. So that's a really big one. With married Black women, you find that there's an unfortunate narrative about Black men in Atlanta when it comes to like the relationship realm, not even considering everything else, but we're just talking about relationships. But this this idea that Black men cheat, that the Black wives, girlfriends aren't also married. So there's like this is just normal human behavior, that married people like to hang around married people, date people that are dating, like to be around people that are dating, single people group with single people. So not being able to find like a healthy, this narrative that you're unable to find a healthy community of like-minded people who are invested in marriage and invested in like the integrity of holding the relationship together. So I would say those are the two really, really big things.
Well, and where a lot of this is probably being fed through the media.
Absolutely.
And it's like, because everybody's at home, and it does have a huge effect on how we see the world. And I think that we all assume that everybody's thinking and feeling the same thing. So we stop asking each other questions. We don't even go up to the person that we're interested in and really finding out. We just kind of log that person into our stereotypes or whatever paradigm that we have running through our brain, and we don't find out for ourselves. This is why I love to travel the world, because there's so many parts of the world, so many parts of this planet are displayed in a way that it can, it's to scare us. Like, don't go over there. They're fighting. They're kidnapping. They're this. They're that. And then you go there and you find out that they're loving, they're caring, compassionate.
Right.
I mean, they kidnapping too. Don't get me wrong, but but you find out that is not to the extent that has been portrayed. Growing up, I thought all of Africa had babies with flies around the head. And that's just real, because those were the only images of Africa that we were shown. It was Sally Field with a white baby or with black baby, and then I go to Africa and I'm like, hold up, man, like this is here. It's beautiful, and you find out that a lot of Europeans are actually vacationing there and got the summer, and you're like, yo, like I gotta see the rest of the world. I got to see the rest of the world. So we got to explore our culture more.
Yes. That's a really good way of looking, like on a macro level, how you can apply that in a micro level, looking at your own intimate world the same way. You want to explore, you don't need to go all the way across the globe to find something new. Right? If you can be open-minded and flexible enough to say, there is something new right here in the city. There is a new, like, I don't have the same, the word, to use your word, I don't have to put everyone, go by my old paradigm about what is a Black relationship supposed to be like. Can I be flexible enough, open enough to look at this person as an individual and wonder about their values and wonder about their experiences? It's so important, instead of like, and that's why I say, it's such an unfortunate narrative, because it's a story that we tell ourselves about a group of people that could very well and isn't true. It's not true. It's a myth. It's a myth. And if you can just even if you could, you don't have to accept that. If you can wonder about it, if you can wonder about that for 30 days, I can change your whole dating life. If you can wonder about it for 30 days, your whole relationship life will change. You don't even have to accept it. You don't even buy into it. Just wonder about it and see what happens.
I love that. It's like lead with curiosity, right? Find out. And why this is powerful, because yes, we're talking about race, and we're talking about specifically, we really zoomed in, but we're really talking about people out there struggling with mental health who are not receiving help or going to get help because of the narrative, the stories that they're telling themselves about themselves. One, that they can't, that things can't get better, right? And that there's no one who can help me, and that there's no one who wants to help me. And it's like, if you could just spend 30 days in curiosity, of expansion, of wonderment, to find out if all these things you're telling about yourself, about the people around you, and the resources available to you, is it actually true that no one can help you, that no one wants to help you, that there's been no progress, there's no signs of hope? Is that true in 30 days? Come on.
And you'll find that it's not, right? Every time. And that's why I don't have to ask you to buy into it. You ain't got to pay me for that one. I'll just ask you to be curious about it. And that's fact checking, right? That's just like, let's take an irrational thought, Let's take a current thought and let's just see about it. Let's just see, is there any sign of hope? Is there any light? Did you laugh at all? Right? I never laugh where I'm always down or I'm crying all the time. All the time? Every time? You'll see that it's not true, right? And the goal is to hook onto those moments, and we remember things that are emotional to us, and that's why depression sucks so bad, right? Because it's so emotional, and then it's so easy to attach events to it. Like I was depressed during graduation, and so now. Graduation was depressing. I was depressed at my family reunion. My family is depressing because it's so emotionally charged. We remember it. Things that have emotions to it, it sticks to us like glue. So we've got to make those happy moments emotional, right? So first we start with the facts. Did I smile today? Oh, I smiled one time. How do I make that emotional? Maybe if I write about it and I write about how it felt when I smiled. How did it feel when I got to talk to that friend? Let me take that fact and let me zoom in on the emotion of that event, and it'll stick. And now it's easier for me to recall. Now, when I ask you, did you have any good day this week? Instead of saying, no, it's just another bad week. Well, no, because because that person has already zoomed in on that event, and now it's stuck because I focused so much on how it felt when I was happy, that even if it was just one time, if I got one time, I'm good because you got one time, and that was better than no times, because last week it was 0. Last week you said it was none. And so this week, if I got one, that's progress. Ooh, I love that. Tell me how it feels to make progress. Boom, emotional charge. Ooh, you're going to remember that. You're going to remember that when I ask you about that and how it felt. So we've got to make those happy moments. It's not just a fact, because when you're depressed, it just looks like an event. But I want to know how it felt in that event, because now it'll stick. And if I can keep getting them to stick, well, now I've made 0%. Can I get 12 in 7 days? Can I get 12%? Can I get, what is it going to take to get you to 15% next week? Oh, you need one more happy event? Great. Well, you've already shown me that you can get one. You got one last week. You got one the week before. We can get another one this week. So we're just building a track record, and I'm going to make it emotional for you, so it'll stick.
You know what? A couple things I want to unpack. There's 3 things. We might get a little heavy here. You let me know if you want to get on this roller coaster with Leo Flowers.
All right. Okay. I'm already strapped in. Let's go.
All right. So one is when we talk about all the time, you cry all the time. Me and my girl, we got this thing where she'll say I'm great or I'm awesome. You know, all the things that Leo Flowers is. But I will respond. I respond with sometimes. She'd be like, "Oh, you're amazing." Yeah, sometimes. Oh, you know, and anytime she uses these like black and white, or even myself, if I use a black and white term, I always like to bookend it with sometimes, because I'm never a thing all the time. I'm not great all the time. You know, or else we wouldn't we wouldn't have any discourse. There wouldn't be any tension, any passion, any emotion between us, right? And so whether it's quote unquote positive or negative, effective or ineffective, I always bookend it with sometimes. It's like I feel great sometimes. I slept horribly sometimes. Like everything is sometimes, or most of the time, but nothing is all the time. No emotion is all the time, and that's good for people who, like you said, are struggling with depression or struggling with anger, who are struggling with maybe even mania. You know, we always talk about depression and sad, but mania can disrupt your whole life and destroy it.
Absolutely.
and create some type of downward spiral. Or even excitement. There are a lot of stats that are coming out now talking about emotional driving, not just drunk driving, but people be in their car, they'll receive good news, be so excited about the good news, having a baby, getting a raise, and then they get in a car accident. They lose perspective. They lose their true north because it's emotional, like you said. The second thing I wanted to talk about was oh man, I forgot the second thing. But so we'll skip that. the last thing, because we talked about emotions and how to make things stick, right? When we look at the 8 minutes and 46 seconds of the video, people will ask me why this video? Why this video got people out in the streets? Because it was emotional. See, the other videos were quick. It was like they were almost a meme. They were almost a GIF, right? Like cops pull up quick, pull out the gun, bam,
yeah,
body drops, boom, and then we like, all right, and the Kardashians, blah blah blah, right?
Yeah.
But 8 minutes and 46 seconds is long because when you see somebody get shot, there's no time for you to get emotional. Right? Because let's think about what a shooting is. A shooting is an action movie. It's action, right? We love an action movie. Rambo, any of the Rock's movies, Fast and Furious. People get shot all the time. We take our kids to go see action movies. It's not a big deal to see someone get shot. There's no emotion that we feel with that, right? But in this case, we had torture.
Yes.
We don't like torture. We don't like to see something drawn out, right? It's not the death that sticks with us. It's how they die. That's what people will say. I'm not afraid of dying, of death. Yeah. I'm afraid of how I'm gonna die. And so we had nonchalance in this video from the officer. He had his glasses up on his forehead. He had his hands in his pocket, right? He almost had a little smirk, like, and if you watch any of these Law and Order videos, you know that the first kill is always the hardest. There's always some hesitation marks. There was no hesitation with him, so he's done this before, and so we knew this on a subconscious level. This has been done before, right? And he was comfortable doing it again.
Yeah.
So we have 8 minutes and 46 seconds to sit with this and to hear a man cry for his mother. He wasn't cursing back. He wasn't angry. He was in pain. We don't like to see something in pain. We only like to see animals in pain. We don't like to see something hurt. Immediately we want it. The dare gets hit. Get out the car. You got to shoot it in the head and kill it. But we didn't have that privilege this time. This time we had to sit with it. We had to feel that. And that's why this video spurred the movement that you see, because it's something this is a murder that we felt. It wasn't a quick meme.
Yeah.
Right? And so it goes back to what you were saying in terms of when we feel something emotionally, it sticks with us. It spurs us to act, right? We can step away from the stats, the quick fixes, the microwave dinners. No. I want you to feel every part of this. And as another metaphor, the other reason why it stuck is because we were all at home. We didn't have our numbing tools. We didn't have Sunday football. We didn't have basketball games. We didn't have work on Monday. No. We had to see this video over and over again in the confines of our home, right? And so it wasn't something that we saw, got mad about for 2 days, and then moved on. No. Oh no, we're on the same ship with this one. So,
oh my gosh, yes.
The stick of it has to be emotional, what you're feeling and why you're doing the thing.
Yes. Oh my gosh. All of that. There's so much that we could say about that. I think that just ties all of this stuff that we've been talking about together. It's what happens in the gap. Like from the beginning, that initial moment, we're talking about the 8 minutes, 46 seconds, from second one to minute and second, 8 minutes and 46 seconds. That gap is where all of this exploded from. It was what happened in the gap. And I could say that about every single thing we talk. It's what's in the gap when you're talking to your partner. Instead of just rushing to the solution, how about sitting in the gap when we're talking about someone who is suicidal? Instead of rushing them to I don't know, just go get some sunlight and step on a treadmill. What about just meeting you in the gap? What's in the gap? That's where the change is. That's where the change happens. That's where everything you need happens. As horrible as George Floyd's death is it is horrible. It's not past tense. It is horrible. In this gap is exploding all of these things that, like you said, we don't have, and you use a really interesting word, the privilege of ignoring. We don't have the privilege of fast forwarding to the end. We are in the gap and we are uncomfortable in this gap. Yes, because of the nature of what it was, every single thing about it, right? Because of what it is. But also because we are so unaccustomed to being in the gap. We just want to move to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. We don't even know what it's like to be in grief for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. That's what it is, right? We're in grief in 8 minutes and 46 seconds of pure disgust for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Of devastation for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. It's not something that you can, like you said, like meme it. This is something that you have to, it's in the gap that all the feelings come out of. And so this is an amazing, if you could call it a lesson, it's difficult. This is such a difficult situation to like kind of, it's an awkward thing to like attach positive things to me, like I don't personally like when we're like, well, let's just look at the bright side, right? I'm not calling this a bright side. I am calling this like a challenging lesson that if we can be in the practice of being aware of what's happening in the gap, then there is the potential for amazing growth to happen and amazing change to happen, even though the gap is horrible. No matter what good thing comes out of it, it doesn't make the gap any less devastating. It's just acknowledging that there is something that does come out of the gap that can move us forward.
Taylor, I really appreciate you sharing all your thoughts and ideas with us. Is there anything that we haven't talked about? I mean, you're a triple threat. We got so much to talk about. We ain't even get into the nutrition and the food side.
Oh my God.
Of how that affects. We ain't talk about how your diet could affect. I posted the other day. I was like, how much of how you feel is what you're feeding yourself, and I meant that on every level, from food, from media, to the people you're surrounding yourself with, to the way you're talking to yourself, relationships, all of that. But we got to have you back. We got to have you back for sure.
I would love to come back. This is great.
Because we got to Malcolm X this. It's like, a lot of people don't remember but when that movie was released, he had to release it in 2 parts. That's how long that movie was, like 4 hours long, and my sciatica can't be sitting through all of that. So we got to give the people a water break. We're gonna space you out, Taylor. Is there anything that we haven't talked about though that you feel like needs to be shared for people who may be struggling with feeling lonely, feeling like a burden, feeling hopeless? Is there anything that you want to share with them?
I would say that the first thing that you that's imperative and vital that you give yourself is grace. The grace to feel that way, the compassion towards yourself, because the world is asking for compassion from everybody, but you've got to save some for yourself. You've got to save some for yourself. I'm not going to tell you what order to do it in, like whether you want to give it to the world first or give it to yourself first, because right now this is just a whole different monster that we're dealing with. So your priority is up to you, but you've got to have some for yourself. And to work at this stuff in chunks. There's so many different things that you could focus on. But what I would absolutely recommend for anybody is that, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like that feeling of devastation, which I think most of us have had at least a semblance of it over the last couple of months to feel that hopeless feeling. Just pick one thing. No matter what everybody else is talking about wants you to give your attention to, and petitions that you need to sign, and rallies that you need to go to, and meetings that you need to attend, and Zoom calls you need to get on. Just pick one thing. Just pick one, and give yourself at least 7 days. I like 30, but I'll work with you on this. Just give yourself 7 days to focus on that one thing. If you want to get outside more, for 7 days, focus on that thing, and give yourself the opportunity to feel accomplishment and progress in one thing, and then everything else will build on top of that. But just pick one and chunk it out.
I love that. And then last question. I always imagine, well, actually, plug all your things. Where can people find you if they want to work with you? Plug all of that. Shameless plug.
Yeah. So you can find me at Thresh Coach, THRESH Coach.com. Same thing on Instagram at Thresh Coach. You can find me there. Send me a DM or an email. It'll come right to me. And my phone number is also linked to my Instagram. And it's also all over my site too. So it's threshcoach.com.
Check it out, threshcoach.com. Of course, that'll be linked in the show notes. And then last question, Taylor Chandler. I always imagine there's one person listening in who may be on the precipice of ending their life. Before you kill yourself, what would you say to them, Taylor?
I would say life. When you look at life, it's so huge. None of us can grasp it. None of us. Not one of us can comprehend the magnitude, or even when you think about how short life can be, we can't comprehend it. We don't know. But it's only a series of moments. It's just moment to moment to moment. And every time you get one moment, the last moment's gone. So if you can find one thing in this moment to take you to the next moment, one thing, this moment, just do that. Just do that. That's all you need. Just do that. And you might find that you end up in the next day. And if you get to that next day, then we're just going to take one moment at a time, and maybe you'll end up at the next week. But it's moment to moment, one thing in one moment. That's just life. It's just a moment after moment after moment.
Thank you for reminding us of that. When I played college football, we wore these T-shirts that said one day at a time. But for people who are really struggling, the day is too much. It's too overwhelming.
Yes.
And it's like, all right, maybe I could just get out of bed and take a shower. Right? Sometimes that's the victory. Sometimes that deserves a Stanley Cup right there. So, like you said, take time to pat yourself on the back for your accomplishments. There's no such thing as a small accomplishment. There's an African proverb that says that the sun shines on a small village as much as it does on a large city. It doesn't pick and choose where it shines. So everybody can get some.
Yes.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Remember, this podcast is not a substitute for you going to get help, for you checking out Thresh Coach, for you going to thrivewithleo.com. At least go call 1-800-SUICIDE. I've called it. It's linked in the show notes. They're international numbers. I know I got listeners in Canada and in London and South America and Australia and Indonesia. I appreciate all of you for tuning in, for sharing, for rating it 5 stars. Let's get to tomorrow together. Thank you so much, Taylor.
Thanks, Leo. Bye.
Just a reminder, today's episode was brought to you by BetterHelp, because they want you to start living a happier life today, not tomorrow, not a month from now, today. The service is available for clients worldwide. You can start communicating in just under 48 hours. They will match you with a licensed therapist. For me, I know the value of talking to someone. It's not always about a fix or a solution. It's really about feeling heard, feeling connected, feeling like I have an ally, a friend, someone who understands what I'm going through. BetterHelp will help you with that. It's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available. As a matter of fact, if you put in betterhelp.com/Leo, you get 10% off. That's right. That's my special offer for BYKY listeners is type in betterhelp.com/Leo, Leo, and you can join the over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. Go to betterhelp.com/Leo today.